So those other two issues, while they are definitely very concerning for duty situations, you can at least do your research and you can potentially avoid. This issue can be unavoidable. You can buy a PDP made in February of 2021, or you can buy a PDP made in February of 2024, and you could run into the exact same issue, an issue that could get you, your loved one, or someone you're trying to protect hurt, injured, or killed. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Walther PDP, and we're going to break down the name and see does it meet the expectation of each category it claims to represent. The performance duty pistol. We know it's a pistol, right? That's not a high bar to meet, but does it meet the standard of duty, and is it a pistol that has a leg up when it comes to performance? So full disclaimer, who's sponsoring this video, who's providing me ammo for this video, all that stuff? Well, I am. Right? No one's given me any ammo, any money, nothing like that to make this video. I'm the one who goes out there, who gets guns, who gets ammo, who gets products, and makes videos on them. Occasionally I do get sent products by companies. Occasionally I do get sent things to test out, which is awesome and I appreciate it. But most of my videos, most things you see is me putting my money out there, my time, my effort to make this content. And ultimately, this is a hobby. So I'm not asking you to go donate to my Patreon, to go subscribe to my OnlyFans. All I'm asking is if you can go on down in the comments, leave a comment down below, engage with the video, leave a like, go subscribe. All of that stuff is 100% free, and it supports me and this channel, and ultimately makes this hobby I do a little bit more worthwhile. So first off, talking about the performance of the PDP, what do you first think of when you hear performance? Well, when someone hands you that gun for the first time at your local gun store and you pick it up in the hand, what do you try first? Well, for me, it's the trigger. So let's take a look at the trigger of the PDP. So taking a look at the PDP trigger here, it is a curved polymer trigger. We get up on that trigger, we go up to that wall right there with a little bit of take up, and then we're right there on the wall. We have a teeny bit of creep here, it just creeps just a little bit, and then we got our brake. Nice, clean, crisp, lightweight brake. 4.5 pounds, nothing crazy. And then we got our reset right here. There you go, you're back on the wall and ready to fire again. And it is a nice forceful reset, meaning it helps you get off the trigger and back on the wall faster when you're shooting. Now, a nice, clean, crisp trigger is fantastic on a duty pistol, or especially a performance pistol, but another key aspect of performance is how the gun actually shoots. What is the recoil impulse like? How well can I track my sights or my dot and return it back to my target when I'm shooting? That's what truly matters. So I took the PDP and I put it head to head with one of the most venerable, well-known duty pistols in the world, the Glock 17. Now, when I compared this stock PDP to a stock Glock 17, the Glock 17 was the clear winner. Not only was there perceivably less recoil with the Glock 17 over the PDP, but the Glock 17 also had so much of a better recoil impulse that I was able to track my dot faster in recoil, ultimately leading to faster follow-up shots with the Glock 17. Now, why is it that the PDP has so much more recoil? Because in reality, this thing feels almost like a .40 caliber pistol. This thing feels like it has way more recoil than a 9mm pistol should, and there's definitely some reasons for that. So one of the contributing factors to the PDP's poor recoil performance goes with the slide. The slide of the PDP is just massive. Not only is it very high up, but it's very thick and weighty, meaning there's a lot of movement, a lot of mass that is traveling above your hand and very high up. This pistol has a very high bore axis, meaning the relationship between the bore, the chamber of the gun, and your actual grip is rather high. If I compare it to something like a Glock, the Glock bore axis is a heck of a lot lower, meaning the slide rides closer to my grip, and the Glock's actual slide sits lower in the frame and is not as thick and tall, meaning there's less mass moving above my hand with the Glock 17. Well, technically this is a Glock 34, but you get the point. And you have that mass traveling higher up on the PDP. So all that mass is moving rearward and then forward when the gun's recoiling. And on top of that, the fact that you have a single spring recoil system that is very aggressive and stiff. So you have a very stiff, very aggressive impulse that sends that slide home every time. And now, to make matters worse with the PDP, not only do you have to contend with that slide, but when it comes to controlling that slide movement, you have to use the PDP's pretty mediocre grip. So the actual grip of the pistol doesn't look bad, but when you actually get to using it, that's where the issues begin. You do have a backstrap system that allows you to have a small, medium, or large backstrap. Obviously, the largest backstrap provides you with the most real estate here for your support hand, but the support hand real estate is just terrible no matter what because of this massive slide release. This massive slide release just gets in the way of your support hand. Either you go so high to where you ride that slide release because it's so massive to where your slide will not lock back on an empty magazine, or you have to drop your hand low enough not to interfere with that, but now your grip is even lower than it was originally, meaning your support hand has way less torque and way less leverage on the pistol when it's cycling. And on top of that, for your dominant hand, this grip texture, and your support hand really, this grip texture is not very effective. It looks nice and aggressive. When you actually grip it, it starts to get pretty slippery, and I would expect, at least a pistol for me, that has the name Performance in it, that it would actually have a nice aggressive grip texture, which the PDP most certainly does not. Now, while the PDP may not be the world's best performance pistol, that doesn't mean it can't be a duty pistol. There are plenty of duty pistols out there that may not have the best recoil impulse, may not be the best performing guns, but they're reliable and they're dependable, and that's what counts. So is the PDP reliable and dependable? Well, that's where we have some issues too. There are several well-documented issues with the PDP that, to me, can almost disqualify it from being a duty pistol. So the first issue with the PDP has almost all but been eliminated. It's very hard to actually find a PDP unless it's an old first generation one that still has this issue, but it's something you should be aware of if you're looking at purchasing one. And that issue is with the optic plate system. So the original optic plates and the slide were completely smooth. It just sat in there and it screwed in. There was nothing locking it in place. There was no male-female relationship. There was no tabs. There was no recoil lugs, nothing. It just sat in there. And yes, it had front to rear protection because obviously the front and rear of the slide cut, but side to side, there was nothing protecting the shear force from going directly on those screws, and to me, that's a pretty poor design. Now, within about a year, Walther did correct this, and this variant of PDP I have right here from 2022 has that correction, so the plate system has a male-female system. However, the PDP still has an issue, which I see across multiple pistols, where for a multi-optic system, you have a gap in the rear and front of the optic system, meaning some of that shear factor is being put on the screws that are used for the optic. Now, it does have recoil lugs. This is an RMR footprint optic, and there are recoil lugs in the proper place, so you do have those, but there is still that chance that some of that shear force is not supported. Now, I did do one-handed manipulations with this pistol, and I did not have any issues, no loss of zero, no screws coming loose, nothing, so it's not a concern that I actually saw any evidence to be concerned about, but you at least want to make sure you're getting a newer generation PDP for that optic system, and you might want to get an aftermarket plate from another company that has fencing in there for your pistol optic. Now, this next issue with the PDP is also a generation-based issue, where newer PDPs do not have this, but this PDP is from 2022, and it still has this issue. And what is that issue? An out-of-battery issue. So if I take something like this, the SIG P320, a pistol I do not like, and I push it out of battery, the gun does not fire. I let the gun back into battery, trigger's ready to go. Same thing, once again, push the gun out of battery, dead trigger, back in battery, trigger's ready to go. I take this Glock 34 right here, push the gun out of battery, trigger will not fire. Gun goes back into battery, trigger is ready to go. Once again, out of battery, gun will not fire, in battery, ready to go. However, I take the Walther PDP and I push it out of battery, right? And just so you can see, the gun is at the wall, it is actually ready to fire, push it out of battery, dead trigger. I let the gun go back into battery, dead trigger. Now, of course, that won't happen on its own. If I push the gun out of battery, I don't touch the trigger, gun goes back into battery, the trigger will function. But if I'm in a self-defense situation or a duty situation where I'm in a close contact situation, I'm pushing up against a threat of some sort, and I'm trying to shoot, well, the gun's gonna not be in battery, and the trigger will go dead, like most other pistols on the market. But with the PDP, I push the gun out of battery, or this generation, the trigger dies, gun goes back in the battery, the trigger's still dead. So my first response as a trained individual would be to tap, rack, so I'm losing a round, I have to rechamber, and then I can get back into the fight. And in a close quarter situation like that, I may not have a second hand available, and taking my gun out of the fight for however long it takes to tap and rack off a piece of equipment, that could be long enough for the bad guy, for the threat to get the upper hand and ultimately injure me, or harm someone I care about. So that's a pretty big issue. However, Walther has fixed it with their newer generation of PDPs. If we look at this PDP Pro right here from 2023, it does not have this issue. So I take the gun here, right? I rack the slide, put it in battery, push the gun out of battery, dead trigger, gun goes back in the battery, trigger is ready to go. And I did take the slides off both these pistols and swap them around to the other frames, and I discovered that it is a slide issue. So 2022 and prior Walther PDP slides will not function if they've been pushed out of battery and you push the trigger. You're gonna have to re-rack the slide and rechamber around to fire that gun. If you have a 2023 or newer slide and newer PDP, then you're gonna be good to go. But make sure if you're gonna purchase a PDP that you are purchasing a 2023 or newer Walther PDP. Now, there is another issue with the PDP, one that is cross-generational, that is not gun or variant specific, but seems to affect the PDP series as a whole. And it happened to me when I was testing this gun at the range.
Alright, well, so put the mag in, and dropped the slide, and it dropped the bullet down. So it's loaded to 18 rounds, no crazy overloading or anything, but it did not. Let's try it again. All right, now it's there. Let's go back to shooting.
So what you saw is I was shooting, I conducted a slide lock reload, I dropped the slide, but the slide didn't close. The reason the slide didn't close is it got stuck on the first round in the magazine, getting stuck into the feed ramp, and ultimately required me to remove the magazine, clear the gun, reinsert the magazine, and then the gun was ready to go. That's a pretty big issue. That's a pretty scary issue, because if I was in a situation, self-defense or duty situation, that reached the point where I had to conduct a slide lock reload, which is a pretty bad day alone, where I've shot a gun so much in a self-defense situation or duty situation, where I've shot 18 rounds, or 19 rounds if you had one in the chamber, and now I conduct that slide lock reload and my gun malfunctions, that can be pretty bad. And that issue is not a one-off where I've only had that issue. In fact, my friend Brett with Nightwood Guns, who was testing and evaluating the PDP Pro, had a very similar issue.
Again. So there's the nose of the round. As you can see, it just got completely crunched on the feed ramp.
So if you look at Brett, he had the exact same issue occur, but at a different point in his course of fire. For me, it was at the reload. After I conducted the reload, the slide wouldn't close, but for him, it was mid-magazine. So you could be just a couple rounds in and run into this issue where you're 2 or 3 rounds into your firefight, and for all those people out there to say, oh, a gunfight could only be a couple rounds, well, I could be just those couple rounds in, and my gun is not functioning properly, and my slide is seemingly locking back and getting stuck on a round. Now, Brett sent his gun into Walther along with his magazines, and what he got back from Walther honestly makes this issue to me far worse. So when Brett got his gun back from Walther, it was the exact same gun, and there was no indication that they'd done any work to the pistol. Instead, they sent him brand new magazines. What does that indicate? Well, to me, it indicates it's a magazine issue. And that happened to his magazines with the Pro that have these extended base pads, and to my PDP that has the standard base pad. So it's not an issue with the extensions, it is an issue with the magazine. And the reason that's so scary is because a pistol issue, let's say you buy a gun and you know it can have this issue. Obviously gives you some hesitation. You want to make sure you get the right variant, like the out of battery issue. You want to make sure you get a 2023 PDP so you don't have that issue. However, a magazine issue, there's nothing indicated. There's no serial numbers, there's no dates or anything on this magazine. The only thing that's on here is your witness marks and made in Italy. That's it. So if there was an issue with your magazine, you wouldn't know it until you came across it. You couldn't necessarily test every magazine that you own. If you bought a new magazine and you test that magazine, doesn't have any issues, but then you buy another magazine a week after that, that magazine could have that issue. So those other two issues, while they are definitely very concerning for duty situations, you can at least do your research and you can potentially avoid. This issue can be unavoidable. You can buy a PDP made in February of 2021, or you can buy a PDP made in February of 2024, and you could run into the exact same issue, an issue that could get you, your loved one, or someone you're trying to protect hurt, injured, or killed. So is the Walther PDP a performance duty pistol? No, it's just a pistol at the end of the day. The performance of it is lacking, and the duty qualifications of it are concerning to say the least. This pistol definitely has its fair share of problems, and while you can get a PDP that does not have those first two issues, where you get the proper year, you get a 2023 or newer PDP, and then you test all your magazines significantly to make sure they feed and fit correctly in your gun, that's a lot of ifs. That's a lot you have to do to just make sure you get a working pistol, versus you go out and buy something like a Glock, and you just get a working gun. You go out and buy other brands, a Smith & Wesson M&P, you just get a working gun. You go buy a FN 509, you just get a working gun. Versus the PDP, I should not have to do extra work, extra research, extra testing to just ensure I have a reliable pistol. So if I were you, unless you already have a PDP that you've tested and vetted and know works, I would not go out there and buy a PDP. I would look for a different pistol that offers you better performance and better duty reliability. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the video, if you liked hearing about my experiences and my opinions on the Walther PDP, go and leave a like down below. If you disliked the video, if you are a lover of the Walther PDP, you carry one every day, you trust your life to it, and you think I'm a no good Glock shill who just hates on Walther, well, there's a dislike button for a reason. Otherwise, guys, head in those comments. What are your experiences with the PDP? Is it a pistol that you purchased day one in February of 2021 and it has been a reliable, fantastic workhorse for you? Or did you try a PDP once at your local gun shop and realize, it wasn't for me? Or did you buy the PDP, have your own negative experiences, and now it's a pistol you're going to avoid like myself? Go ahead, head in those comments down below, let me know. Otherwise, guys, I'm working on new content, so subscribe and stay tuned.